Hey again. Okay, let's continue on with rocks. Okay, so now you should have reviewed the mineral presentation. All these minerals usually will make up rocks, with the exception of a few different ones. But rocks, how they differ, they don't fit all those five criteria that minerals do. They have to be natural and they have to be solid. Other than that, there's a whole combination of things that make something a rock. And as you may recall from sixth grade, that there are three main kinds of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. And tonight, or today, whenever you start to view this, let me see, we're going to talk about igneous. Okay. Now, one of the things about igneous, or what they want you to know about all the rocks, is how they are formed. Now, again, I told you before in the last video how important this topic is. The good news about it is that the grades for these quizzes and tests are usually the highest you're going to have all year, because most of the questions are all on the reference tables. You just need to know how to use them and what the terminology means. So when we get to that point where I'm teaching about the reference tables, please pay extra attention. Okay, so first thing I was just telling you, needing to know methods of formation for igneous rocks. Melting and solidification. Ooh, that's a little too big. Okay. Melting and solidification. Those are the first answers on your sheet. Okay, so the process that make igneous rocks. Any rock you melt down, and then it solidifies. Remember, anything with ATION at the end of it means making of. So solidification, making of a solid. And the two types of molten rock that we discuss in earth science are magma and lava. Okay, they're both molten rock. What's the difference? Magma's on the ground, lava is above the ground. So once it reaches the surface, it's then considered lava. Anything underground is going to be considered magma. Now, these two types of igneous rocks will differ based on their texture. Okay, and when I say texture, I'm not talking about the way it feels. Okay, so please, 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 when I ask you about a texture of a rock, don't tell me it feels rough or feels soft, it feels smooth. Okay, that's not the texture we're talking about. From now on, texture is going to mean a whole vastly different thing. Okay, so magma, since it's in the ground, makes something called intrusive rocks. That's kind of easy to remember. And they also create something called intrusions. Okay, and these are areas. Let me show you. Oops. Where's my picture? Oh, there you go. Areas where magma intrude other rocks. Okay, so here you can kind of see it in this little picture. All right, you can see this is all magma in the ground, and once it reaches above the surface, that's lava. But you see how this intrudes this layer? This would be a layer of limestone. You see how this little branch kind of intrudes that layer of limestone? That is called a magma intrusion, all right? And so here again, here's some pictures. And here we go. Here's an intrusion. Here's an intrusion. Now, when it flattens out, that's something different. Okay, so we're going to talk about that right now. Oops. Okay, so just make that a little smaller so I can find my notes. Rocks that are above the ground. Oh, and here's an actual real picture of an intrusion. See how that black rock right there? That was magma. It got shot up through these layers of sedimentary rock and solidified in there. So that is called a magma intrusion. Okay, but once it makes the surface, this is going to happen 1,000 times. And once it reaches the surface, we have something called extrusive rocks. Okay, so molten rock comes to the surface. It's now called lava. It has exited the ground, so it's called an extrusive rock. And any flat pile of solid former molten rock is called an extrusion. Okay, so over here, you can see, I think this is the exact picture I have in your notes. All right, so you see how J is intruding all these layers? That's called an intrusion, but it gets to the surface and it makes this flattened out appearance, and that's called an extrusion. Now notice here, G is also considered an extrusion. Now how did that happen? Well, at one point, this right here was the surface of the Earth. And then we had the intrusion, it came up to the surface, it solidified here, and then it has since, over millions and millions of years, been buried from there. Okay, so here's your also, right, all your lava and everything on here eventually will solidify and become an extrusion. Okay, so that's the first 4 notes. And let me see what I have next here for you. Okay. Okay, so this is what makes different textures of rock. Okay, what determines the crystal size of rocks? All right, now these are your 4 different textures of rocks, and they're all determined by how slow they cool. Okay, so what determines the crystal size? Time. Time determines the crystal size. The slower it cools, the larger the crystals are going to be. And I'm sorry, I'm just like my timer stopped on my phone. There, it's still going. Okay. I have to make sure I'm under 10 minutes. So if we look at these 4, okay, so look at these 2 right here. This would be large chunks of crystal. You see the big blotches of black and white and gray and pink. Those are big blotches. Those are large crystals. This is something that cools off in the ground. Cools off slow, it makes big crystals. The slower it cools, the bigger the crystals. That's your answer to number 5. So, and this would be, and so that would be magma. Magma is the only thing in the ground cools slow. Anything that cools above the surface is going to cool fast. Now, either cools fast or cools extremely fast. Okay, so this right here would be a fine grained. Okay, so this would be from lava, and it cools slow. I mean, sorry, that's slow. That's slow. That is fast. Now, these 2 down here are extremely fast. Okay, extremely fast, cool off so fast that they don't have grains or crystals at all. See how this has like this glassy appearance? There's no crystals here. And believe it or not, this one here does not have any crystals in it either. All right, so if you're looking at the above 2, we have large chunks of crystals that would be cooling slow in the ground. This is get to the surface. It almost looks like grains of sand. So these are smaller crystals. Or you have no crystals. So let's look at the notes and exactly what it says there, what you should be writing. Okay, so magma, this is on your notes, the chart, cools slow and it makes large crystals. Lava cools fast and it makes small crystals. Extremely fast cools make no crystals. Now, how do you make it fast versus extremely fast? Extremely fast usually is like out of a volcano, and it cools off. It gets shot up so high up in the sky that it actually gets to a very, very cold layer of the atmosphere. So it goes. So when you saw those gas pockets getting trapped in there, that's from cooling extremely fast. Okay, so now these 4 rocks roughly are the same as what's in your notes. Okay, let me see. Do I have your notes? No. Where's your notes? That's this. I had your notes up here. Okay, so your notes have 4 examples of rocks, and they look roughly the same as, that's not it. Where'd it go? Oh, I'm sorry. I really thought I had it up here. It looks roughly the same as these 4 right here. Okay, so this would be example of the first one, and we said the crystal size is large, so the cooling speed is slow. All right, this is the second example of a rock. All right, so let's actually answer the questions underneath it. Would you say that this is magma or lava with the large crystal size? That would be magma. And is that intrusive or extrusive? Large crystals circle intrusive on your notes. You should have intrusive or extrusive on your notes if it printed up right. So this is more grains of sand. Cooling speed here would be fast. And is this intrusive or extrusive? It's going to be extrusive. This is the exact picture that's in your notes. Okay, this is crystal size. There are no crystals, and it cooled off extremely fast. This also would be considered lava. This also would be extrusive, and this is similar to the one that you have in your notes too, with the bubbles trapped inside, and that also is no crystals, cooling extremely fast, and this would be lava which is extrusive. So the only one that's intrusive was this guy right there. Okay, I'm going to take a break from this, and I will continue on with the igneous notes for the next page of notes.